Welcome to Leadership to Go. My name is Pari Namazie. I am an executive and leadership coach and the managing partner at UNEPA. Join me as I explore leadership insights from all walks of life. So, very, very warm welcome, Doug. It's so lovely to have you here on Leadership to Go.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Perry.
And I know it's quite early where you are. Is it 7 a.m. in your time zone?
Yeah, something like that. But it's worthy. You're so worth getting up early for, Perry.
I'm not sure I would wake up early at 7 a.m., but thank you. I appreciate it. And really lovely. I do a little context of how you and I met, and then
Excellent.
I'm gonna come back to you with some questions. So Doug and I were trying to figure out when we met, and it was we met on some coaching program that we were on. It was a team coaching program, a lovely, lovely one that was on by the famous Peter Hawkins, and we met there, and we just continued not only learning together and challenging our growth together, but then we found so many other things in common, not only about leadership development, coaching, the state of the world, our impact on our families, and this became a very sweet little friendship that we have fostered over the years. We still have not met face to face, but I hope one day we do. And
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
always so grateful to technology that we are able to have these beautiful connections all over the world, and meet people that matter. And you are one of those people that matter,
Hmm.
not only to me, but to the impact that you make everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I always feel that every time I speak to you, Doug. So, really warm welcome and thank you for
Hmm.
joining us.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And I'd love to start with the question of I know you have such a vast, so many years of experience and vast history. Tell me a little bit about why you are where you are.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Um, I am gonna raise this just a little. I'm noticing. Yeah, there we go. Um, I'm here to serve. And this is a legacy that was handed to me by my parents in watching them deeply serve and love their communities that they were in. My dad was a small business owner. My mother was a homemaker and just had so much intentionality to be of service in the world and uplift the world and make the world a better place. And so I am definitely standing on their shoulders. And over time, that's emerged in language, and a way of putting words on that for me is that I am here deeply committed to reducing suffering in the world, and doing that by creating these environments and spaces where people can be authentic and people can really show up as their true selves. And in doing so, I'm doing that in a commitment to their healing and their transformation. And uh, ultimately, I'm a commitment to supporting the evolution of humanity. How can humanity be uplifted
Mm.
and become more healthy and become more authentic?
Yeah, lovely answer, Doug. It's you meet people, and some people just use words, but others really walk the talk. And
Hmm.
it's nice to see that. I guess because I know you, I can say that. But how do you convey that message? How is authenticity and sincerity conveyed? You might believe in these things, you might say these things, but how do you really show it in practice?
Yeah. Well, um, I have repeated that credo in one of the organizations I work with and do a lot of work with. We actually give every teammate that joins the organization a moment where we put a blank piece of paper in front of them and have them reflect on what's their purpose in life. And I
Mm,
think that is incredible. How many of us go through this world and never actually slow down enough to really articulate, I am here for this purpose. And we
Mm,
are doing that with our 70,000 plus teammates that work inside this organization. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful moment. And
mm,
from there, then we continue to work inside of supporting leaders in their being more authentic and open. And we do that by helping them identify their purpose. We do that by helping them identify what are their core beliefs that are driving them each and every day. And oftentimes it's a great moment when the first pass they take at that are all the should beliefs, right? All the beliefs they think they should have. And then we
mm,
push it right back into their laps and say, go again. Those, like, what is it really? And you get, leaders emerging and then standing on stage talking about, my core belief. We have one leader who stands on stage in front of, 5,000 leaders in the organization saying, my core belief is that life is fragile.
mm,
And you just can feel the authenticity and the realness of that expression and that belief in a way that just builds credibility, it builds connection, and it builds humanity. And
mm,
then there's stories that are followed up around, events in that leader's life and family that have brought that moment out in terms of, the health of loved ones and personal health and things like that. So that, like, driving for a more of a deeper expression of who a person is,
mm,
helping them articulate that, helping them put words to that, and then helping them express that,
mm,
really is a way of really bringing out that authenticity. And then for me personally, Barry, it's a weird thing, but I'm known as the guy who's willing to say the thing everyone's thinking that may not be politically correct, and do it. There's a way in which the spirit with which I've brought to these things, and in some ways, I don't know, I don't talk about this a lot publicly, but in some ways, my meditation practice, I think, helps me be just present and say these things without any, like,
mm,
judgment or resentment or any energy on them, but just being able to say the words. And
mm.
then it goes back to that classic UCLA Dr. Daniels. What was his name? Oh my gosh! At any rate, he coined this phrase: "If you can name it, you can tame it." And once those things get said out loud and named, they're so much easier to do that.
Mm, mm.
I could
Yes,
go on.
yeah. When you were talking about that, I can say these things. That phrase immediately came to my mind as well, and I don't know the author either, but we'll find
Yeah.
it later.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of what you said, you unpacked a lot about authenticity, about finding purpose, and that you do this with every leader you come across. And I guess it's what I've been finding in a lot of my work with leaders and leadership teams. You don't somehow, when you're promoted into that position of leadership, somehow that's not the first thing that comes to your mind. Every leadership course you go on, it always starts with self leadership, self awareness first. And yet I'm always surprised at how many people don't know that. They don't know about aligning to your values. And my question to you is, at what age do you think a leader becomes familiar with that? Are you seeing that as a trend, that new leaders are more aligned to their values, are more aligned to purpose, or is that a space you have to create for them and say, you have permission to do this?
Uh, I um I would say probably more the latter in this day and age, that people are need to be prompted.
Mm,
Um because I see a lot of leaders trying to figure out the equation to get to the next thing.
Mm.
And in figuring out the equation, or, and I do believe that we need to adapt into our environments. But if our behavior is being determined solely by the environment, trying to get ahead, and we totally leave ourselves out,
Mm.
then that's not going to lead to a healthy, authentic, believable, credible leader. And people can see that and smell that. And
Mm.
I think we're going to get, as humanity and AI starts to continue to expand, I think we're going to get better at being able to sniff out the fake people and the people that are just trying to do the right thing versus be the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yes, I do believe now our like one of the organization I'm embedded in right now, like we push people, and when people show up and have like a very like positive kind of affect and put a silver lining on everything, our senior leadership will say, hey, you're being chosen to put voice on this topic because you are a peer of the people we're presenting to. And so you need to also represent the shadowy, not so great parts of it. Otherwise, you don't have any credibility. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is a huge risk for people to actually, again, say what they're actually thinking about something, in a way that's positive and forward moving, but also represents the whole picture, not just the positive, this will get me promoted, this will make me look good picture. Like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
represent the whole picture and be like, hey, it's not perfect, but it's not done yet,
Mm-hmm.
to a degree. So, so yes, I think creating these environments where people can better understand themselves and then align themselves to what they're up to in the world and the organizations they're in is a key.
Is it because I know it's a very special organization that you're in, and
Yeah.
also involved in healthcare, and also creating a community and this village and bringing people together. And I think with all the different companies I work with, it's quite rare to see this. So in your environment, that's lovely that the company has created this. But for many other companies, it's so much about profits and business first, and dealing with the risk and uncertainty and navigating all of that and navigating organizational politics. And so people are like, purpose, is that important? And probably one of the things that we're seeing, Doug, as well, is at that top level of leadership. There's a lot of ego there. There's a lot of narcissism over there.
Yeah.
How do you balance that?
Well, I'm appreciating that word balance in a way, because I do want to say it is a polarity to manage, not a problem to solve. Right. So it's not like total focus on culture and human parts of leadership is going to meet the need. There is also, incredible intensity alongside that focus on the human elements, an enormous focus on performance that is
Mm,
brought as well inside this particular organization. And so it's the managing of that polarity that is so important. And then, the original CEO would talk very clearly about, it starts with me. It starts with the most senior leader that sets the tone.
mm,
And, he was famous for publicly saying, if culture is important to you, it should report to you.
mm,
And a lot of times culture gets kind of delegated into a human resource function. And that senior level of leadership doesn't really take any responsibility. Like, I don't know if I'm overstating it by doesn't take any, but doesn't understand the deep impact they have on that.
Mm.
And that does require some humility at times, right?
Mm.
And the facing of one's ego and things like that. So I don't know if that was directly responsive to your question,
Mm.
but that's
I loved how you said polarity, it's a polarity to manage, not a problem to solve. And I think that's so true. It's like, you're sort of both sides of the spectrum.
yeah,
Whereas how do you have you do have the, I'm going to use the word ego over here. It drives things, right? But there's also humility perhaps on the other side, or what do we need to build culture?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering when I, hear the word polarity and managing polarity, how do you work with leaders to give them that feedback? How do you help them to reflect on that?
Well, in some ways, to be honest, the operational technical side of their role is like like again, it's this idea that like which is more important, the technical operational business or the
Mm,
culture people human.
mm,
And you know the CEO that gave birth to this culture and everything said that it's community first and company second.
mm,
Again, saying that if you make them equal and give them like, hey, these things are of equal priority,
mm,
business will always trump the
mm,
culture and the people.
mm,
So there is this intentionality of saying it's community first, company
mm,
second. It's
mm,
human first, business second. And then this metaphor that you brought up of a village is also a beautiful metaphor that gives
mm,
permission to like, we're going to bring any mayor, any, government leader of a civic leader would want economic prosperity in their geographic responsibility in order to reinvest into
mm,
that community. And so
mm,
this idea of community first, company second is like, I'm going to push on the economic performance and our business performance so that we can serve our community more deeply and fully and take care of them more effectively.
mm,
And in that metaphor, there's so much more meaning to some of our programs that I think a lot of companies will offer an employee assistance program or
mm.
some sort of a health benefit that's organized around helping people take better care of themselves. Um, but when you put it in this metaphor, it has more power and meaning
Mm,
behind it.
mm,
The other thing I would say is I'm a big fan of Ken Wilber and integral theory. And if you're a geeky person like me and you don't know about Ken, I just gave you a thread that if you pull on will give you years of like exploration. But inside of his model, he makes a distinction around the interior and the exterior. And so I think that also the temptation in our operational business technical focus is that we can look at culture and we can just look at the systems and processes we're putting in place to support things like look at this health benefit that we're adding,
mm,
look at this time off, look at this um, uh, 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 a leave of absence that we could put in around having a new adopted child or giving birth in your family. Like we can get oriented around systems and processes, but the other side of that equation is the internal feel of it and the
mm,
meaning and the value and what people feel inside of that. It's the interior meaning making of
mhm.
these systems and processes. And I think sometimes in our business world, we can get over indexed on the system and process, and we
Yeah.
don't give enough time, energy, and language, quite honestly, to the interior and crafting. How are people going to feel about this? What are they going to say about it? What's going to be the, the shared, intrinsic kind of
Mm-hmm.
values of it that get perpetuated in the system versus
Mm-hmm.
just the structure.
Mm. And I feel that's something that we really need to, perhaps in our coaching world, it's something that we keep tapping into. It's tapping into not only what's happening in the head, but what's happening in your heart. Where's your gut?
Yeah.
What's intuition? What are you feeling? And I see that in my own development as a management consultant working with clients, and I later became a coach. But as a consultant, it was all about the results, right? It's all about
Yeah.
the outcome of projects, the bottom line, the benefit to the bottom line. It wasn't, and it's about the structures, the processes, the frameworks that you're creating. No one cared about how do you feel about it. And I think that that sort of connection with head and heart is something we really need to become more aware of. So it's nice that
Yep.
you're tapping into that. Um,
Here's a simple practical tip I can give to your leaders looking at watching this is just start talking broadly about what we do is so important, but we need to bring as much intensity to how we're doing
mm,
it.
mm,
The what and the how, teasing that apart and starting to talk about the like bringing intentionality and
mm,
attention to both the what and the how. And in
mm,
some ways saying it's even more important how we do something, because that
mm,
how is going to get to that internal that I was
mm,
talking about. The what is the external, and the how probably is
mm,
going to help you tap into that
mm,
internal part of the experience of it.
yeah, beautiful. The experience. Can do you have an example, Doug?
Um, yeah, I think that, let me think through an example of the what and the how of something. Um, I'm recalling, um, working. Do I have a good example of this?
I was putting you on the spot.
No, it's great. I love being put on the spot. Part of it is, I think, is like we're doing a major rollout of a new initiative that is, trying to create some intensity and focus within an organization, and trying to get 5,000 leaders oriented and moving in the same direction is really hard.
Mm,
And I've watched some leaders in the system try to create accountability by having, if you don't hit this number this week, then you'll have the pleasure and opportunity to get
mm,
on a phone call with me Saturday morning
mm,
to talk through what happened and what you're going to do to fix that next week. And, that, like, you're stealing people's time away from their families on Saturday morning. And that is not going to that doesn't create, that creates more fear
mm,
based accountability than supportive accountability, than getting on the phone and getting
mm,
curious and having more of a coaching approach and an empathetic approach, and trying to understand the complexity of each situation, because their
mm,
world is so much more complex now, and there's so many more stressors and pressures bearing down on us that we, I don't know, sometimes I just feel good about getting out of bed in the morning. It's such an interesting world these days. So I think that's a good example of someone who's focused on just the what and gonna like maniacally go after it with just disregard for the impact on
mm,
the human,
mm,
in terms of the maniacal focus on achieving that result.
mm. And what would be a good practice then in this example of yours?
Yeah, I rather than the Saturday morning phone call, I think we're living in a world where as technology comes along to assist us in so many different ways, that one way to think about it is mass customization.
Mm,
And in that context, how do I as a leader better understand and connect with that person, and connect what this result is really driving for, and
mm,
with them and their personal values and their why, and then get them oriented to and work to
mhm,
support, to help remove obstacles for them. And so that comes in, having a conversation usually, and
mm,
like digging in and spending some time to really support someone. And I know that there are leaders that are probably listening to that saying, I don't have time for that. The world's moving too fast.
yeah.
And that's where I think we have to push hard on, well, then how are you leveraging
Yeah.
AI? Or here's a surprising thing, Pari. The single biggest topic as people rise that I find people need support around is capacity. And
Mhm,
they get into a job and they're crushing that job and having really great results, and they get attached to that work,
mhm,
and want to keep doing it
mhm,
because they know how to do it. And I think the leaders that are growing the fastest, that I've seen grow the fastest inside systems, are the ones that are willing to let go of the work. No matter
yeah.
how much they love it, they push it down and give developmental opportunities to those below them, that frees up their time and capacity to focus more and be able to give this differential human touch to really support people.
Yeah.
To really support people. The other paradox I'm going to say is, being human focused does not mean tolerating underperformance, because that's another conundrum that people can bump up against. Because again,
Mm,
remember, I started with my purpose in life is to reduce suffering in the world. And if
mhm,
someone is not competent and capable to do the job that is before them, or if the jobs and the complexity of the job has evolved and the person hasn't evolved with it, and they're no longer able to perform, even though they're maybe have this in tenure, et cetera, it's really hard for us to make the choice to help that
yeah.
person, find another role within the organization or leave the organization, but to
Mm,
continue to try to, when someone just is not capable of making that move,
mhm.
and tolerating that mediocre performance is a double hit on your capacity.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. Capacity is one thing that I always hear from leaders that, as the job responsibilities get higher, is I don't have time. And it is letting
Yeah.
go of things. I think that's so hard for a leader to let go of. But most of the very successful leaders I've seen are the ones who are able to empower their team by
Yep.
delegating and allowing their team to become decision makers. And I think that's just, again, that's letting go of that piece. And you said that very nicely, because everyone thinks that the myth of, if I'm a human leader, if I'm more humanistic, that means I must be tolerating underperformance or poor behavior. And it's not that. It's not weakness. It's not being, one of the leaders I worked with, he said, we need to be kind, not nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really,
Clarity. I like another phrase that goes right along, like a sister phrase to that, is clarity is kindness.
yeah, yeah, very
Clarity is
nice.
kindness. And not being clear or tolerating that, like, underperformance, is actually
Mhm.
creating more suffering in the world.
It is,
No one's
absolutely.
happy. You're dissatisfied. They know they're not performing.
Yeah.
That's creating suffering for them. Now, I'm not saying don't invest and support and do what you can to accurately assess, and support people in their growth and development, and just make these
Mhm.
radical, quick decisions. And, inside of an organization I was supporting, there was this kind of a leader always says, think about the last time you regretted making a move to support
Mhm.
someone and leaving.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oftentimes, and now think about how many times when someone has actually left, you've had some level of relief, or that things have unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's, now that may because be because we're a human focused
Mm-hmm.
culture, and we do tolerate sometimes some underperformance a little bit longer than maybe other organizations might. But yeah.
Yeah, and so much of what you said, Doug, so many memories came back of leaders and exactly some who did not let go of people earlier and how it came back to really bite them. But I
Yep.
know our time is running out, and I'd love to ask you, with your different experiences in this whole domain of leadership and developing leaders, what are you seeing as the skills that we need? What are the skills that we need in today's leadership moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I think the skills that we need are, um, sit inside of a context that I've started to try to give language to, that as the world outside of our organizations is becoming so unpredictable and chaotic and untrustable in so many ways, that I think there is incredible opportunity for each of us as leaders. And in some ways, I'm like gonna, like, a call to action here is, your employees and teammates are looking to you.
Yeah.
And if you can bring skill and competency to building authentic, trusting relationships,
Mm.
because there's no, like, you're gonna like capture so much of that employee's spirit and energy and effort, because the rest of the world is so untrustable. And so
Mm.
if we can create our organizations to be safe places where
Mm.
people can feel fully dignified, and where
Mm.
they feel like they can bring an authentic self, and they feel like they can show up and contribute their best self, and that they can trust the system that they're operating in, because those systems out there are so
Yeah.
untrustable. I think that is a pathway to unlock incredible possibility and potential.
Mm.
And while you're going to unlock more performance, for me, I would say it's more about giving people a place to feel safe, a place to
Yeah.
feel their dignity, and a place
Yeah.
to feel a sense of true belonging,
Mm.
right? Like, if you can do that in your organizations, people are going to be flooding and trying desperately to come work there, because
Mm.
uh, of how hard it is to get
Mm.
that anywhere in the world right now.
Mm. Doug, lovely that you said that. And I think it takes me back to this, and we've talked about this before, this whole notion of, as the world feels so unpredictable and uncertain, and there's anger. There's so much anger in our world right now. And sadly, it's not only anger, it's hatred. And there's a lot of negativity and confusion. And I think it's not only our organizations which need to foster that, but I get a sense that we all need a sense of community and a sense of belonging
Yeah. Yeah.
everywhere, within our family unit, within our different communities that we're part of, whatever that is, within the societies that we're part of. I think that's a role for everyone to work on. A young leader. My last question to you, and I didn't even get to talk to you about your journey, as sorry, we missed that part. That'll be part two. But
There you
as a
go.
young leader who's just growing or looking to come into an organization, what advice would you give that person?
Invest in the relationships, and build your networks, and uh, and be authentic, and be clear about who you are. As as AI, it gets more and more utilized, people are going to sound better and better,
Mm.
but we're going to be able to tell those that really believe what they're saying versus those that are just spouting off what AI told them to say.
Mm.
So build a embodied leadership presence
Mhm.
that people can feel and people can trust.
Yeah.
And that is an inner journey, not a
Mhm.
technical outer skill building journey. That is those that have the emotional intelligence and that depth of
Mhm.
presence are going to be the people that are gathering and attracting people that want to follow them.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, Doug.
you're welcome.
I'm not going to keep on my questions because I know our time is, but this has been so valuable. Thank you.
Happy to contribute and appreciating what you're doing in the world and the contribution that you that's deeply aligned in your pushing forward in the work that you do, and the beautiful work and opportunity you give people is amazing. Thank you for letting me be a part of your world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much.